stop what you're doing. A Coinbase insider just leaked the U.S. government's plans to buy $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin.
I think sometimes the ideas are so big that people either can't hear them or don't want to hear them, but they got to listen to this one. Okay.
And this doesn't even take into account that MicroStrategy is about to plow $57 billion more into Bitcoin.
Under the new 4242 plan, we're 32% complete. That leaves us with around $57 billion of additional capital to be raised through the end of 2027.
4-year cycle? Is it over?
Yeah.
Woo!
Oh, and a $100 billion asset manager just said that they're launching spot Bitcoin purchases for their customers this year. This is what we've predicted. This is what we've been saying all along. Bitcoin is about to decouple faster than Asar Thompson from Jalen Brunson on that crossover last night. You ain't ready. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Bitcoin smashed through 97K yesterday, and it's probably because we're experiencing a supply shock.
Publicly traded companies have already bought 100% of the new supply of Bitcoin this year. In other words, the Bitcoin network is going to produce about 165,000 Bitcoin this year. Publicly traded companies have bought almost that much, and we're only through April. So this is a big deal from a supply-demand perspective.
Not that they needed high Bitcoin prices as ammunition, but Phong Le and Michael Saylor were walking into their MicroStrategy earnings call yesterday like Clay and Jimmy Butler in a closeout Game 6 versus the Rockets tonight. And it's because they announced their plans to double their already $42 billion Bitcoin purchasing plan to $84 billion.
Under the new 4242 plan, we're 32% complete. That leaves us with around $57 billion of additional capital to be raised through the end of 2027. As we move forward, we'll focus more on the fixed income side of our plan through instruments like Strike, Strife, convertible notes, and potentially new structures we may explore over time. At the same time, we'll continue to utilize the equity ATM when conditions are favorable and when it represents an accretive and efficient option for our shareholders.
Okay, that's earnings call mumbo jumbo right there. What Phong Le is really saying is that we're going to be seeing tweets like these from Michael Saylor every weekend from now until forever. And why not? It's working. Since adopting the Bitcoin Treasury strategy, MicroStrategy shares are up 2,887%. Over the last 12 months, it's up over 188%, 110% more than the next closest company. Oh, and during the market turmoil over the last several months, it's outperformed everything. And now, MicroStrategy has the 13th largest treasury of publicly traded companies overall. And this is just the beginning, because this is just MicroStrategy. This doesn't even take into account all of the other zombie companies out there.
I moderated a panel with 3 sort of executive leaders of companies and asked them why their companies in particular were buying Bitcoin. And what was interesting to me is they each had different answers. One was doing it because they wanted to demonstrate that they had an affinity with their audience. Another one was doing it because they just thought Bitcoin was a good investment and they had excess cash. And then the third, Semler Scientific, which is a medical equipment device manufacturer, did it because they had a legacy business that was throwing off a huge amount of cash, but wasn't growing and they didn't expect it to grow. And so they had to figure out what to do with this cash. And the chairman of that company said something interesting to me. He said, Matt, there are like a couple hundred companies that fit this bill, that have established businesses that aren't growing, but are very profitable. And he thought that many of those companies would end up buying Bitcoin.
And this is why Charles Schwab, the firm that manages $100 billion worth of assets, says that they're launching spot Bitcoin ETF purchases later this year. The demand is insane.
We think we're the premier destination for investors interested in investing in crypto. We custody the most crypto ETF assets in the industry. We are working on a plan to launch spot crypto in the next 12 months, ideally this year, but in the next 12 months.
With Saylor and Schwab, we're talking about 60, 70, $80 billion worth more capital. But what happens when $1 trillion worth of capital plows into Bitcoin? This Coinbase executive lays out a plan that's a little contrary to what people think as it relates to gold and Bitcoin.
So today, because of law, the U.S. government still values gold that it holds in Fort Knox at $42 and change, right? Now, if they were to just mark that to market, so it's worth probably an incremental $900 billion to $1 trillion, right? Now, if you look in the public press on Twitter, most people suspect that it will revalue it and then sell some gold to maybe go buy some Bitcoin. We don't think that that's the most likely case. We believe it's most likely that at some point, it could be this year, they will go and change it such that they will revalue gold to current market pricing. That would create a mark-to-market gain of $900 billion, right? And if you look at, I think the Senator Lummis bill was calling for buying, I think it's 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. Well, that's $100 billion, if I have the math right. So our back of the envelope is that when the revaluation occurs, that creates a $900 billion, given today's market price, mark-to-market gain, which then is money that the Treasury could then take. And then the Treasury would be able to use that money in the Sovereign Wealth Fund in a budget-neutral manner to go and buy a variety of things, we think probably including Bitcoin. And just to think about the math, $100 billion of 900 billion doesn't sound like that much. But the asset is about a $1.8 trillion asset. And if we go from no longer selling, right, which we just did, to here's a way by which we can actually take on a meaningful position, it's hard to see a situation where other governments don't feel compelled in some way to measure up.
And
right?
then you have this arms race, as it were.
I don't know if it's an arms race, but it's definitely a competitive situation, as it is already today with gold, right? We have, I think, the largest stockpile of gold based on public data. And it's very well known that central banks around the world have been buying gold, right? Probably because of the overall level of debt that they see and the concerns around the global economy. But you've seen, big participation from institutional investors, the most institutional, right? Central banks, they're not investing in Bitcoin, gold, they're saving in gold, right? They're saving in gold. That's what they would say. So does it seem so crazy to maybe save in some Bitcoin at like, say, a 90-to-10 ratio?
What happens when the world makes Bitcoin their piggy bank? Not just individuals, but governments and central banks. In their earnings call, MicroStrategy laid out a 5-step plan to dominate the world. Raise capital, accumulate Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin forever, never lose the Bitcoin, never sell the Bitcoin. Now you can use the same strategy that MicroStrategy is using by never selling your Bitcoin. And you can unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin stack without selling it by working with Ledn, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Since 2018, they've issued over $9 billion worth of loans, and they've done it in a way that's fast, seamless, open, and transparent, which is why they have over 1,000 5-star customer reviews. You can get liquidity in your account in less than 24 hours. Loans start at just 12.4%, but for people that go to the links that I mentioned a little bit later, well, you get 0.25% off your first loan. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply to get started. One of the ways that you can hold Bitcoin forever and never lose your Bitcoin, well, that's by taking proper custody and care of your Bitcoin by removing it from third-party exchanges. And one of the best ways to do that is by hiring a coach, someone to teach you how to do it privately, safely, and securely. And that is the Bitcoin way. Members of their team will walk you through 100% proper self-custody. Don't just leave your Bitcoin on exchanges. You have the conviction, now take the next step to protect it. Go to thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin to get started with a free 30-minute consultation with their team. All of this bullish news in Bitcoin happening right now doesn't even take into account the fact of what's going on in the treasury market and with the dollar collapsing. Dan Tapiero, a $1.2 billion asset manager, says that he believes that Bitcoin could go to 180K in a blink of an eye because of these factors.
In 2021, the interest rate was zero. Okay, zero, and Bitcoin was 60,000 at the peak. So here we are today at 95,000. If we take short rates down, back to zero, I think Bitcoin would be probably closer to 300,000. Now, I don't think they're going to zero, just because the interest rate is a reflection of how much liquidity is being put into the system. And it's a whole bunch of other things, but this is just my back of the envelope guess. We take the 2-year note back down to around 2%. Bitcoin's at 180,000 with nothing else changed. So the fact that Bitcoin's at 95 with the interest rate here and the dollar down, only sort of 5% from, the last 6-month moving average is unbelievable. Like, it is super duper strong. I know looking at all the macro variables. So if you have a little more of a slowdown, you have this dollar weakening, you have the interest rates drop, just that alone, forget all the great fundamentals, all the new flow into Bitcoin, flow into Ethereum and Solana. To me, I see everything. Bitcoin is the leader. Bitcoin is the core asset.
This also doesn't factor in the Trump-Besant American dominance plan, which they believe when America gets restored to energy dominance and manufacturing dominance, well, that removes a lot of uncertainty in global markets. This isn't priced in.
As a recovering Wall Street person, I can tell you Wall Street people like instant gratification. President Trump's agenda is an agenda for the next 1, 2, 3 decades in the U.S. of bringing back manufacturing. And we have a very, what I call a barbell economy. On one side, we're the envy in the world of financial services, tech. On the other side, we're a great natural resource economy driven by energy. We're going to keep the energy dominance going. And what President Trump is doing is looking to bring back the precision manufacturing jobs that have left over the past decades. And I think we will close the uncertainty aperture more and more every day, every week on these tariffs. But we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix this overnight. But I do think uncertainty will go away.
What happens when uncertainty goes away? What happens to the price of Bitcoin? And this is why Bitcoiners are stacking like maniacs right now, because all the volatility in the world and the volatility in Bitcoin itself is what scares people away. This is a gift.
Volatility was a gift to the faithful. It scares away the tourist. It scares away the lazy. It scares away the people that are already conventionally rich, that have all the money. If you're a 20-something or a 30-something and you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to spend 100 hours or 200 hours, if you have more time than money, then the volatility of Bitcoin is a gift to you. If you have more money than time and you're arrogant and egotistical and you just pick the obvious, then if the volatility goes away, you buy Bitcoin. If people in the rest of the world knew what I know and they understood and they agreed with me, Bitcoin would go to $10 million tomorrow. And if Bitcoin went to $10 million tomorrow, I want you to think about how you would feel and how your viewers would feel, because you would lose 20 years of stacking opportunity during which you get to buy at less than $10 million. So the difference between $10 million and 100,000, that's what you give up if the volatility goes away and people start to agree with you.
This is your alpha. This is your opportunity. Stay humble, stack sats. Continue to educate yourself by learning about what Bitcoin is, why the world works the way that it does on shows like this. And we want to thank everybody who's been watching our show. As a Simply Bitcoin channel, passed 2 million views in April. Thanks so much. If you get value from this, do subscribe, share, and like these videos when you've watched them. Your conviction rises to the level of your education. And when your education gets on par with the rest of the world, well, it'll be too late. One of the ways you continue to level up in your Bitcoin journey is by going to Bitcoin conferences, mainly the largest Bitcoin conference in the world, down in Las Vegas from May 27th through May 29th at the Bitcoin conference. Use the promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off your ticket. Go to the Bitcoin Magazine conference website and use the promo code SIMPLY when getting your tickets to get 10% off. We got you hooked up. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.